So, our book from the Bible today is Luke chapter 6, verses 6 through 16. On another Sabbath, he entered the synagogue and taught, and there was a man whose right hand was withered. The scribes and the Pharisees watched him to see whether he would cure on the Sabbath, so that they might find an accusation against him. Even though he knew what they were thinking, he said to the man with the withered hand, "Come and stand here." He got up and stood there. Then Jesus said to them, "I ask you, is it lawful to do good or to do harm on the Sabbath, to save life or to destroy it?" After looking around at all of them, he said to them, "Stretch out your hand." He did so, and his hand was restored. But they were filled with fury and discussed with one another what they might do to Jesus. Now during those days he went out to the mountain to pray, and he spent a night to pray in prayer to God. And when day came, he called his disciples and chose 12 of them, who he named apostles: Simon, who he named Peter, and his brother Andrew, and James and John, and Philip and Bartholomew, and Matthew and Thomas, and James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon, who was called Zealot, and Judas the son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor.
Hi, my name is Amelia Meisel, and I was a graduating senior this year. So I was struggling to write my speech for today, and my sister suggested that I come up with my favorite Koyo memories. And suddenly she started giggling. I asked her why she was laughing, and she responded by telling me some of her funniest memories. And although I didn't have panic attacks on top of mountains, wet my pants in the Everglades, or have dead rats fall on my head, like her, I realized that my mission trip experiences these past 4 years could not have been more memorable or impactful in my life, although slightly less traumatic. Going on a mission trip is like nothing I had ever experienced before. My freshman year, I went to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota and thought no trip could ever top it. Then sophomore year, I went to Washington, D.C. and became a member of IDH, the Indirect Helpers, which basically meant my group never actually talked to the people we were helping. Junior year, we traveled to Musselshell, Montana, a small town with less than 1,000 people. I learned on that trip that I was a big city person. And finally, this year, we went to Denver, and I realized the work I had done for 4 years hadn't really changed others' lives. It had changed mine the most. Sure, the house I demolished on the reservation had helped someone, meant the many people I helped feed in both DC and Denver had made their day a little easier, and the hundreds of salt cedar trees I'd pulled from the Montana River had helped the environment. But my life was the only one that had dramatically changed. One day in Denver, my group went to a coffee house that many homeless people go to during the day for lunch and games. Our job was to simply sit and talk to people for the day. It was a bit out of our comfort zones. So we walked into the coffee house and we decided, okay, we're gonna meet new people. I sat down at a table with 3 men, 2 of whom were playing chess and the other was watching. After playing against all 3 and losing several times, I realized I wasn't very good at chess. So I started to start talking and said, something I can do a lot of. People came and went, but one man kept talking to me. He was born on the Pine Ridge Reservation and had moved to Denver when he was 18. To this day, I have no idea what his name is, but I'll never forget what he said to me at the end of the day. He said it was really nice to have someone to talk to, who actually knew what he was talking about instead of just pretending to understand. Then he said, "I hope you have a beautiful life." I can now see how mission trips have changed me. I am no longer scared to go make conversations with strangers or easily intimidated by things I don't understand. I have evolved from answering the question, "Where did you see God today?" beyond my freshman year response of "the beautiful scenery." I have realized that if at any given time I can look back on the past 24 hours and find at least one time I have seen God, I'm able to find a rose each day, even in a day full of thorns. And I have seen how grateful I am for my blessed life. Just being able to go on these mission trips through the support of the congregation has been an amazing blessing. Even more so, I am able I'm grateful to be able to come and tell my congregation about my incredible experiences on my last Mission Sunday. And although I do realize that this is probably my last speech ever, seeing as my sister is sitting in the pews listening to this speech, I'm grateful nonetheless for all Koyo has given me. Thank you.
To start my speech, will the real Slim Shady please stand up? No? Okay, well, I guess I'll start. I go by many names, but most commonly the Slicer. As most of you know, I'm a senior, and what that means is that this was my last mission trip, at least part of the youth of Koyo at Countryside Community Church. I started coming to Koyo halfway through my freshman year. Yes, that's 3.5 years ago. But I didn't start going on mission trip until the end of sophomore year. It was a trip to Washington, D.C., and Patrick Collins was a youth leader then. See, I'm not the guy who's very talkative or outgoing, and if you know who I am, you most likely know that's a lie. But I was scared to leave Omaha and go to a different city. I was mostly scared to jump out of my comfort zone, but more importantly, scratching up my beautiful face. Here, look at me. You can take a couple of pictures if you want. Now that you're looking, knows that I completed that trip with flying colors, and I'm here right now explaining my life. I survived on that trip, even though I took a gnarly spill when some hoodlum skaters rode past me in DC. So, let's talk about this mission trip. I know all of you are here to see me speak. July 7th, the day that will live in infamy, also known as Richard Oshla's birthday. Some people didn't know that on the trip. Ha ha ha. I'm just messing with you guys. On July 7th, that was the start of the mission trip. I was excited because I was the only senior on my trip. Although it was a vicious ride to Denver that day, when we got there, it was beautiful. And not humid at all like Omaha, Nebraska, where we live at this moment. When we got to our housing area, we swiftly learned that there were more guys in our room that were from other churches. Richard and his friends scoffed and groaned at their situation, but once the other groups came, the Koyo boys were not happy at all. This 13-year-old boy named Mark, or as some of us like to call him, Goggles, ate all the zebra cakes and Star Crunch. So some of the boys were a little ticked. Every day we split up into groups. I won't tell you every detail about them, but I will inform you about them. My group of Steve, Trish, Hope, Jesse, and I went to the food bank of the Rockies, the Bridge Project. We painted a trim of a house at Brothers Redevelopment and went to the Network Cafe. If I could rate each place, I would give each an 11 out of 10. Every night, I slept like a baby, snoring my way through the night. I don't think some had such a great experience, though, with Mark/Goggles, waking his friends up and sitting up on his knees for hours. Mark's new name was Chipmunk. I have a question. Have you ever been disgusted in your life? I have. It's called Casa Bonita. Casa Bonita is a Denver classic. John Hammond quotes, "It was a great family place with lots of cool toys." Davis Lee quotes that it has authentic Mexican food. Lastly, Harper Newell quotes it as a top-notch entertainment, and the cuisine had a delicate Chilean undertone. I only blacked out twice. Great cafeteria-style lunch line. If I could, I would go there every day. What place do you know that has Black Bart's Cave, which was terrifying? You could almost not see the wires that were on the fake fish. And there was a gorilla running around. But best, the cliff divers talked in a muffled voice like Charlie Brown character. #sarcasm. The mission trip was rad, one of my best. It's hard to choose since I've been about 100 mission trips. But this one was different. I made new friends from Aurora, Colorado, Newton, Kansas, and people like Hope and Catherine. There was a guy who dressed up like a ketchup bottle with a tie, Tapo Boy, also Mark/Goggles/Chipmunk, tooting at Super Scooper, and Tears of Joy. What I learned on mission was to treat everyone equally. See, we should all try to do it, even though for some it may be hard, but I mean, we can at least try. It's not really that hard, even though I just said it was sort of hard. Albert Einstein once said, "Coincidence is God's way of remaining anonymous." Where I saw God was in Koyo, for reasons I cannot explain. Was it a coincidence that I saw God in Koyo? Or was it our Lord trying to just show me himself in a way that I only saw? I like to think the latter. All right, as Eminem said in When I'm Gone, have you ever loved someone so much you'd give an arm for? Not the expression, no, literally give an arm for. Well, that's Mike Mullen. Maybe not the arm part, because I'm really selfish. As some of you may have heard, Mike is resigning as youth group leader. Some of us on our mission trip got the email before the mission trip. One of those people was me. First I thought it was a joke because I don't really get jokes that well, and when Mike sends emails, a lot of them have joke headlines. But on mission trip, he told us that he was resigning and moving to Rochester, New York. Basically, everyone gasped, but my reaction was quoting a Queen song called Bohemian Rhapsody, saying, quote, "Bismillah, no," unquote. But I understand, it's the best for him, and we should all accept that. I mean, we'll still keep in touch with him, and most of the youth chaperones are staying. But we just have to let Mike spread his wings and fly. So Mike, so long, farewell, Avida, say goodbye. I'd like to stay and taste my first champagne. Yes? You're supposed to say no. Thank you.